I never thought I'd be the guy sitting here, feeling like the ground just cracked open beneath me. I guess I should start from the beginning, but honestly, I don't even know where to start anymore. My wife, Emily, seemed perfect, sweet, caring, the girl I thought I'd spend forever with. We had a good life, or so I thought. She was the one who'd always tell me how much she loved me, how lucky she was to have found someone like me. I'd come home, she'd greet me with that familiar smile, and I'd feel like everything was right in the world. That was until the Christmas party. That night everything changed. I had to work late, but I didn't think much of it. Emily had said she was feeling sick, and honestly, I didn't press her. She was always tired lately, her eyes a little too dull, her smile a bit forced. Still, I figured she'd be fine. When I got home, I expected her to be in bed, maybe a little off, but nothing that couldn't wait until morning. Instead, I found her phone on the kitchen counter. I wasn't snooping, not really, but something about that night gnawed at me, and I just picked it up to see if she'd texted anyone. That's when I saw the email. It was from her boss, Mark. The subject line was casual, "Looking forward to seeing you tonight," but the words inside, they hit me like a punch in the gut. They'd been seeing each other for months, months. I read it twice, then a third time, as if the words would change or disappear. She lied about being sick to cover it up, to hide the fact that she'd been sneaking out, sneaking around, lying to my face. I felt my stomach turn, that cold wave of betrayal rushing through me. My palms went slick. I could hardly breathe. I didn't even want to look at her phone anymore. I felt sick. I spent the next hour in shock, pacing around the house, listening to the silence that suddenly felt deafening. Emily was asleep in the bedroom, probably pretending to be sick. I didn't know what to do. Should I wake her? Should I yell? The only thing I knew was that I was done. Done with the lies, the betrayal, the feeling that I'd lost everything I thought I had. It was like all the years we'd spent building something was just dust, slipping through my fingers. I kept going back to the email. The way she'd carefully hide everything, the way she'd lied so convincingly. I remembered her telling me she was tired, her voice a little hoarse, and how I'd brushed it off. Now I knew better. She'd been seeing him for months, right under my nose, and I'd been blind. Or maybe I just refused to see it because I loved her too much. I sat on the couch, staring at the ceiling, feeling cold and hollow. My mind spun with questions I couldn't answer. How could she do this? How long had it been going on? And why? What did I do wrong? Or was it just her? The worst part wasn't even the betrayal, it was the false hope. I kept thinking about all the moments we shared, thinking maybe I'd missed the signs that I should have known. But now it was too late. I felt that sharp ache deep in my chest, like someone was stabbing me every time I thought about what she'd done. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept seeing her face. That fake smile she put on when I came home, and the email. I kept wondering if I should confront her, if I should just leave everything behind. But part of me knew I wasn't going to let her get away with it. No way. She thought she could lie, cheat, and hide everything, but I wasn't built that way. I'd find a way to get my revenge. I had to, not just for me, but for the betrayal I'd endured. I promised myself that she wouldn't walk away unscathed. And so, this is where I am now. Sitting here, heart pounding, fingers itching to make her pay. The fire inside me is just starting to burn, and I already know I'm going to make her regret everything. All I need is a plan. That's the next step. I'll figure it out. But for now, I'm just trying to breathe through the storm inside. The days that followed felt like walking through a fog. I couldn't sleep, couldn't think clearly. Every time I closed my eyes, her face appeared, that fake smile, the way she looked at her phone like she was hiding something. I started noticing things I'd overlooked before, little clues that now seemed glaringly obvious. The way she'd always brush her hair back when she was on her phone, that sudden rush of nervousness whenever her phone buzzed. It all added up in a sickening way. I started digging through her things, looking for more evidence. It wasn't about revenge yet. I just needed to understand how deep this went. I found receipts from restaurants I'd never seen, messages on her laptop that she never told me about, and a stash of intimate photos she'd taken with him, hidden in a folder labeled work stuff. Like every sneaky detail was just another part of her routine. I couldn't believe she'd kept this up for months, hiding it from me. I felt a strange mixture of disgust and heartbreak. She lied about everything. I remember her coming home one evening, her face flushed but trying to act casual. I was sitting on the couch pretending to watch TV, but my eyes were locked on her. She sat down, took a deep breath, and said, "Hey, I've been feeling really sick lately. I think I need to see a doctor." Her voice was soft, but I didn't buy it, not anymore. I looked at her and said, "Really? Or maybe you're just hiding something." She froze for a split second, then tried to brush it off. "Come on, you know me, I don't hide things." I leaned forward, voice cold. "You lied about being sick. That email you got from Mark, I saw it. The one you told me was nothing." Her eyes widened and her face lost all its color. She tried to deny it, but I stood up, my fists clenched. "Look, I know what's been going on. How long has this been happening? Months. Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think I'd just forget about it?" She looked away, silent for a moment, then whispered, "I didn't mean for it to happen. It just did." That was the moment I realized I had to do something that would shake her to her core. I couldn't just walk away. I had to make her feel the pain she'd caused. The betrayal wasn't just about her cheating, it was about the lies, the deception, the way she destroyed the trust we built. I didn't want her to think she could just come back and everything would go back to normal. No, she needed to see that her actions had consequences. I started formulating my plan. I knew I couldn't confront her directly again. That would only make things worse. Instead, I decided to turn her world upside down, but in a way that would hurt her without crossing any lines. I'd make her regret her choices, make her understand what she threw away. I found her emails with Mark, saved a few for evidence, and even created a fake account. I knew enough about her routines that I could start planting little breadcrumbs, messages, hints, things she'd never suspect coming from me. I also contacted her boss, Mark, pretending to be interested in a promotion at the company, just to keep the lines open. I wanted to know more about their plans, their schedule, everything I could use. Once I had a good grasp, I drafted a plan to expose her at the right moment. I wanted her to feel exposed, vulnerable, just like I did. I wanted her to realize that lying and cheating don't just hurt the person they're directed at, they ruin everything. Her job, her reputation, the trust we once had. I didn't care if it was petty, I was done being the victim. This was my turn to take control. The thing that gave me clarity was her own email, the one she sent to Mark that confirmed more than what I'd seen before. She'd been planning to leave me, to start over with him somewhere else, maybe even take our savings. That realization stung worse than anything. She wasn't just cheating, she was planning to abandon everything we built for her own secret life. That's when I knew I had to act fast. I started setting everything in motion. I printed her emails, took screenshots of the messages, and prepared myself for the showdown. I was ready to confront her, but not before I had a little surprise waiting. I needed her to see that her betrayal was not going to go unpunished. I wanted her to feel the weight of her choices, and I wanted her to know I wouldn't be a pushover anymore. Now I sit here, knowing she's at work, unaware that I'm one step ahead. My plan is ready. She's about to find out just how much I've uncovered. I can hear my heartbeat in my ears, this mixture of anger and relief. I thought I'd lost everything, but now I realize I'm about to take back my power. And when I do, she'll regret ever crossing me. The day I finally put my plan into motion started like any other, but I could feel the weight of it pressing down on me. My stomach was a knot, my palms clammy with anticipation. I had everything prepared, screenshots, printed emails, a detailed timeline. The plan was simple in theory. I was going to confront her with undeniable proof and watch her face crumble under the weight of her own lies. I waited until she was leaving for work. I knew her routine well enough now. She'd leave the house at exactly 8:15 a.m., always a little hurried, probably trying to hide her nerves. I followed her at a distance, my heart pounding so loudly I was surprised she didn't hear it. When she pulled out of the driveway, I quickly slipped into her closet, grabbed her purse, and reached for her keys. I knew her schedule and her meetings. I had identified the exact moment she'd be alone at her desk. That's when I would strike. I parked my car 3 blocks away, then slowly made my way back. As I approached her office building, I felt a strange mixture of adrenaline and nausea. I'd never done anything like this before, been so calculated, so cold. But her betrayal had left me with no choice. She shattered my trust, and I was done waiting for her to realize the damage she'd caused. I slipped into her office unnoticed, hiding behind a pillar for a moment to gather my nerve. I had printed everything in a thick folder, each page a dagger I was ready to wield. I took a deep breath, then stepped out into the open. "Emily," I said softly, my voice steadier than I felt. She froze mid-sentence, turning slowly to face me. Her eyes widened when she saw the folder I held. What are you doing here?" she stammered, her voice trembling. I didn't bother sugarcoating it. "I'm here to show you something." I placed the folder on her desk, watching her eyes flicker over the pages. Her face went pale. "You have no right. Do you want to know how long I've known?" I interrupted, voice edged with rage. "Months. Since the Christmas party, actually. I found your email, the one you lied about, the one from Mark, and I found everything else, those hidden photos, receipts, everything." Her hands trembled as she reached out, trying to grab the folder. "You don't understand, this isn't what it looks like." "Oh, I think I see perfectly," I shot back. "You've been cheating on me, lying right to my face, while I was at home thinking we had a future. And now you want to pretend it's some mistake." She stared at me, tears pooling in her eyes. "It's not about the—" "Enough," I snapped. "I don't want to hear your excuses. You betrayed me, and I want you to know I'm not going to let this slide. You think you can just walk away, leave everything behind? Not this time." Her voice cracked. "Please don't do this. I was going to tell you, save it." I took a step closer. "You're done. This is over. I've got the evidence, and I'm about to make sure everyone knows what you've been up to." She looked like she was about break, her hands clutching her chest, but I wasn't done. I pulled out my phone, ready to send the evidence to her boss, to her company's HR, even to her friends. Whatever it took to make her realize she couldn't run from this. Before I did anything, I looked her in the eyes. "You lied to me, betrayed everything we had, and now you're going to pay." I pressed send, the proof flooding out into the digital world. Her face went slack, her mouth opening as if to say something, but no words came. As I turned to walk away, she called after me, "You're making a huge mistake." I paused, then looked back. "No, Emily, the mistake was yours. It's just about catching up with you now." I heard her sigh behind me as I left her office, knowing I made the first move in what would be a long, painful game. I knew she'd try to deny everything, try to spin it differently, but I had the evidence, and I was just getting started. Walking out into the bright sunlight, I felt a strange, cold clarity. This wasn't about revenge just yet. It was about taking back control, about showing her that her actions had consequences. I could finally breathe again, knowing I'd done what she never thought I would, and I had no intention of backing down. Now I just had to wait and see how she'd react. That's when I realized the real game was only beginning. The fallout hit me harder than I expected, even though I'd been planning this moment for days. When I got home that evening, the house felt emptier, colder somehow. No sign of Emily. Usually she'd be waiting for me with that fake, worried smile, trying to act innocent. But today she was nowhere to be found. I knew she'd be coming back soon. I could feel her anxious energy, like she was trying to figure out what I'd done. I sat on the couch, folding my arms, waiting. My mind kept replaying everything, her face, her voice, that email. I was already feeling the adrenaline drain, replaced by a strange numbness. When she finally slipped through the door an hour later, her eyes darted around quickly, her chest rising and falling like she'd run a marathon. She saw me and froze. "You weren't supposed to see that," she whispered, voice trembling. I looked at her coldly. "Too late. I saw everything, the emails, the photos, the receipts. How long has this been going on?" Her hands shook as she tried to come up with an answer. "It was a mistake. I didn't mean for it to get this far." "That's bullshit," I spat. "You lied about being sick that night, and I found your email from Mark. You've been sneaking around for months, lying to my face. What kind of mistake is that?" She sank onto the couch, tears streaming down her face. "I was stupid. I thought I could keep it hidden. I never wanted to hurt you." I felt a surge of anger rising, but I kept my voice steady. "Hurting me? You destroyed everything we had, our trust, our future. You think I'll just forgive and forget after all this?" She looked at me desperately. "Please, I love you. I swear it didn't mean anything. I was lost. I didn't know how to tell you." That's when I realized I needed to escalate things, to make her understand that she couldn't just apologize her way out of this. Not anymore. I'd spent all that time building my plan, and now it was time to execute the next phase. I knew I couldn't stay passive anymore. I leaned closer. "You know what? I've had enough of your lies. I want you to pack your bags. You're leaving tonight. I want you gone before sunrise." Her eyes widened in shock. "You're serious?" "Yes," I said sharply. "You betrayed me, and I'm not going to pretend it didn't happen. You're not staying here, not anymore." She tried to protest, but I shook my head. "No, you made your choices. I've got everything I need to make sure everyone knows the kind of person you really are, and trust me, I will make sure they find out." She looked defeated, her shoulders slumping. "Where am I supposed to go?" I pointed to the door. "Anywhere but here. I'll give you some time to pack. You're leaving tonight, and I don't want to see you again until you're gone." She hesitated, tears falling freely now. "Please, don't do this." "Too late," I said, voice cold and final. "You had your chance, you threw it all away for some stupid affair. Now you'll have to deal with the consequences." I watched her gather her things, each movement slow and trembling. I felt a strange mix of satisfaction and emptiness. Part of me knew this was necessary, but it still hurt to see her like this, defeated, broken. I'd wanted to do this differently, to understand her, to maybe save what little was left. But she chose her path, and now I had to walk mine. When she finally left, I stayed in the silence that followed, staring at the empty doorway. My hands felt numb, but my head was clear. I'd taken back control, even if it didn't feel like a victory just yet. The next step was knowing how to move forward, how to pick up the pieces of my life after all this damage. I knew I'd be dealing with the fallout for a long time. But I also knew one thing: I'd never let her take me down like that again. I'd rebuild, stronger and wiser. And the first thing I was going to do was get rid of all the reminders. I grabbed the evidence, the emails, the photos, and I made a decision. I was going to hand everything over once and for all to the right people. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just some naive guy who got cheated on. I was someone who could fight back, and I was just getting started. The silence after she left was deafening. I sat on the couch, trying to breathe through the chaos in my mind. It was like everything I'd trusted had been torn apart, piece by piece. I looked around the house, the photos, the little mementos, everything that had once meant something. Now it all just felt like remnants of a life I no longer recognized. I had made my decision. I wouldn't just leave it at that. I couldn't. The first thing I did was call my lawyer. I wanted to be sure I had all my bases covered. I explained the situation, handed over the evidence I'd collected, and asked what steps I should take next. The silence on the other end of the line told me I was finally doing the right thing. The lawyer's advice was clear. I should prepare for a formal separation, consider a restraining order if necessary, and start organizing everything that would support my case. While I was on the phone, I realized I also needed to be proactive with my own life. The betrayal had cut deep, but I wasn't about to let it define me. I started making calls to friends, asking for advice, support, anything. I needed people who wouldn't judge me but who would listen. I also reached out to a counselor, someone I could talk to without feeling weak or exposed. I'd buried a lot of feelings deep down, and I knew I couldn't do this alone forever. By the time night fell, I'd made a plan. I was going to give her the evidence I'd gathered, not just to expose her, but to force a confrontation. One last shot at clarity, at closure. I wanted her to see that I wasn't just the guy she thought she could walk all over. She needed to realize I was serious. I'd print everything out, create a folder, and go to her workplace. I'd confront her face to face, and I'd make damn sure she understood what she'd lost. I found myself sitting at the kitchen table, staring at the stack of printed emails, the screenshots, the receipts. My hands trembled slightly, not from weakness but from a mixture of anger and resolve. I remembered her pleading with me earlier, crying about how she didn't mean for it to happen, how she loved me. That meant nothing now. I knew the truth was in those emails, in her actions, in her betrayal. I packed everything carefully into a sturdy folder, making sure it was all in order. This was going to be my final gift to her, proof she couldn't deny. I didn't want her to get away with rewriting history. She betrayed me, and I wanted her to own it. I wanted her to feel the shame, the regret, just like I did. It was the only way I could think of to regain some sense of control. Later that night, I drove to her workplace. The parking lot was mostly empty, which made it easier. I stepped out of my car, took a deep breath, and headed toward her office. My heart was pounding in my chest, but I kept my composure. I was about to do something I'd never done before, confront her with everything, face to face, with no hiding. She was surprised when she saw me. Her face went white. "What are you doing here?" she asked, voice trembling. "I brought you something," I said calmly, holding up the folder. "It's everything, the emails, the screenshots, the receipts, all the evidence of what you've been doing behind my back." Her eyes darted nervously. "You're crazy, just leave." "No," I cut her off. "I want you to see what you've done. I want you to realize that your lies and cheating don't just hurt me, they ruin everything. I'm tired of pretending I didn't see this coming. This is your chance to own up." She looked like she was about to cry, but I knew this wasn't about her tears anymore. It was about making her understand that I wasn't going to be the fool she thought I was. I handed her the folder. "Read it, and then tell me if you still think you're the victim." She hesitated, eyes flickering between me and the evidence. "You're making a mistake." "No," I said firmly. "You made that mistake when you cheated. Now I'm just showing you the consequences." She took the folder, trembling hands grasping it like it was a lifeline. I turned and walked away, leaving her there with her secrets and her shame. I knew this was only the beginning of what I had to do, but I felt a strange sense of clarity. The betrayal had broken me, but I was also building myself back up. On the drive home, I felt a strange mix of relief and anger. I'd finally confronted her, delivered the proof, and taken control of the situation. I didn't know what her next move would be, but I didn't care. I was done being the victim. From this moment forward, I was going to reclaim my life and do whatever it took to heal. The next step was clear. I'd file for divorce, start the process of cutting her out of my life completely, and rebuild from the ashes of this betrayal. I'd been hurt beyond measure, but I refused to let her win. I'd come out of this smarter, stronger, and more determined than ever. And I'd make sure she never forgot the day I finally exposed her. The days that followed were a blur of legal paperwork, silent dinners, and nights spent staring at the ceiling, trying to piece myself back together. I knew I'd made the right move, walking away, exposing her, ending the illusion of a perfect life. Still, the ache in my chest was relentless. Every time I thought about her, about everything she'd done, a wave of anger would surge up. But mixed with that was a strange, quiet sense of relief. I'd finally taken control of the situation, and I wasn't going to let her take any more from me. I went to see a lawyer, filed for divorce, and made sure the documents clearly stated everything I'd uncovered. I wanted her to be held accountable, not just emotionally, but legally too. When I handed over the papers, I made sure she saw me do it. Her face was a ghost of what it used to be: shock, shame, and something I couldn't quite decipher. But I felt no satisfaction in her suffering. Instead, I felt a strange calm. This was the end of a chapter I never wanted to begin. That day, I also handed her the evidence folder I'd kept from that confrontation. I told her she could keep it, that I didn't need to see it again. I wanted her to remember what she'd lost, not just me, but her integrity, her dignity. Watching her clutch that folder, tears streaming now, I realized that her pain wouldn't compare to the emptiness she'd left behind. As she packed her things, I didn't say much. There was no need. Her actions had spoken loud enough. I gave her the keys to the house, the last physical reminder of what we once shared, and told her to leave. She hesitated, but I didn't. I wasn't going to make this easier for her anymore. Once she was gone, I took a long, deep breath, feeling the weight lift from my shoulders. The house was silent, but it wasn't empty. There'd be no more secrets, no more lies. I was finally free from her betrayal, free to rebuild my life on my own terms. The pain still lingered, sure, but I knew I'd come out stronger. This wasn't the end of my story. It was a new beginning. Looking back, I realize now how much I learned from all this. Trust is fragile and betrayal cuts deep. But it's also a lesson in resilience. I could have gone down the rabbit hole of anger and revenge forever. But I chose to channel that energy into moving forward. I cut ties, closed that chapter, and made sure I never let anyone manipulate me like that again. So here's my advice: if anyone's in a similar situation, don't ignore the signs. Don't let someone else's lies and betrayal steal your power. Expose what needs to be exposed, walk away when you have to, and don't look back. There's strength in knowing your worth. The pain may linger, but so will the lessons. And sometimes the only way to truly heal is to take decisive action, no matter how hard it feels in the moment. Because at the end of the day, you're the one who has to live with your choices. Choose wisely.